Hey, cosmic baddies, welcome back to another episode of Chakras and Cusswords podcast. Today, we are getting all into the astrology for the month of February and also taking a look at some of the most viral, I would even say controversial pieces, areas of discussion that occurred in the month of January of 2026. Like, what the fuck was that? The energy was very intense, it started off strong, and we kind of knew it was going to start off strong. We talked about that there was a lot of high energy in the beginning of January. So the beginning of January, we had Mercury in Sagittarius, squares Neptune and Pisces. We also had Mercury enters Capricorn, Chiron direct in Aries, and then we had a full moon in Cancer. This was all the first week of January, all the way on to the 7th. Then we had Venus in Capricorn conjuncts Mars in Capricorn, Sun in Capricorn conjuncts Venus in Capricorn. Now, the first week of January definitely had a lot of political news. On right around January 1st to January 3rd, we had the U.S. forces conducted a large operation in Venezuela where they captured the president Nicolas Maduro and his wife, drawing global political controversy and also bringing in the interim president Delcy Rodriguez, and she assumed leadership. And there was a lot of debate over this and sovereignty of what is going on with this energy of the U.S. political forefront. Areas have been feeling like this may have been a little bit too aggressive. Some people say that this was something that was meant to happen even back when Biden was in office, but for whatever reason, it never did. Now, the United States President Donald Trump announced that Saturday morning that the country forced and bombed Venezuela and captured the South American nation's president and the first lady. And they have actually gone and taken them to, I believe they are in New York, and they have pleaded innocent. So he's saying that, there's a lot of corruption and narco charges, and also there's a big movement that Trump wants the oil of Venezuela. Venezuela tends to have a lot of oil. So there's definitely some controversy and areas of backlash. Now, also, some of the things that also made the news, which I thought was pretty interesting for that, was also around this time of January 7th, we had the Renee Nicole Good unaliving in Minneapolis. And that is when Renee Good, 37 years old, was shot 3 times in the face on Wednesday by an ICE agent after they attempted to do some type of immigration. I don't know if they were doing like an operation. I'm not really sure but what was going on, but they basically shot her. And there's definitely some controversy because the officer was in front of her car. So that occurred right around the time that we had Venus in Capricorn conjuncts Mars in Capricorn, and also the Sun in Capricorn conjuncts Mars in Capricorn, and Mars in Capricorn opposing Jupiter in Cancer, and also Vesta entering Aquarius. So there was a lot of conversation about that. Also, a lot of different opinions. What was right? What was wrong? Could that have been prevented? There's just been a lot of controversy around Minneapolis, and then also around the energy of the ICE agents being present. So definitely a lot of topics about that. And we see that energy is very big, especially as the United States has a Jupiter in Cancer and is a Cancer zodiac. So we definitely see that this energy, I would say, of the Mars in Capricorn opposing the Jupiter in Cancer, definitely affecting the US in some aspects. Of course, astrology isn't going to create the narrative for everything, but we definitely do see that similarities, and also the area of like two very vibrant emotions of war, and also the sun, the solar energy, could be ego, could also be driven in nature, as we have the sun in Capricorn conjuncts Mars in Capricorn. Also, something that I thought was very interesting and a little bit sad was the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, also known as PBS, is officially shutting down after months of GOP funding cuts. Now, for those who don't know, PBS is a huge, I guess you could say, local radio station, and also it's known to have local TV stations. It's also help funded by NPR, and also it's kind of seen as something that is more, I would say, independent versus forms of media like, CNN or CBS or Fox News. So the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, PB board directors voted to dissolve the private nonprofit corporation after 58 years of service. This is the company that brought us Sesame Street. And I believe even, was it Mr. Rogers as well? I'm not 100% sure. But for more than half a century, CPB existed to ensure that all Americans, regardless of geography, income, or background, had access to trusted news and educational programming, and of course, local storytelling, as Patricia Harris, CPB's president and CEO, stated. She also added that unfortunately, due to President Donald Trump's signed law that last summer to measure the area of decreasing funds to certain projects and nonprofits, that they faced a profound responsibility to basically have the final act that would be protected the integrity of public media system and also the democratic values by dissolving rather than allowing the organization to remain defunded and vulnerable to additional attacks. Yeah. That is interesting because right around that time, we had the area of not just the Venus in Capricorn opposing Jupiter in Cancer, but we also had the area of distraction with this element. And then we also see the area as areas of wealth and money and fortune. And then Capricorn, also kind of known as that movement that we had the sun in Capricorn conjunct Mars in Capricorn, the area of what may have been given a lot of energy, that may have been given a lot of foresight, kind of get met with some area of dishevelment and also some area of corporations collapsing. Then it feels really consistent with just an overturn with certain dedications and commitments that probably many of us thought were going to continue to live throughout our lives, right? As we also had Venus in Capricorn conjuncts Mars in Capricorn right around this time. So it definitely felt like some of our loyal relationships with broadcasting and some of our loyal energy with movement was going to continue to go all the way through, right? Like I thought Sesame Street was going to last forever, but apparently not. And that's quite unfortunate. Now, right around January 14th, we also had Venus in Capricorn sextiles Saturn in Pisces, Venus in Capricorn trine Uranus in Taurus, and Venus in Capricorn sextiles Neptune in Pisces. And the energy was definitely shifting. It was definitely moving. And we had a very high energy day on September 17th, where we had Venus in Capricorn sextiles Neptune and Pisces. And then right around this time of January 17th, we also had Venus in Capricorn sextiles Neptune and Pisces. The sun in Capricorn sextiles Saturn and Pisces. Venus enters Aquarius. Sun in Capricorn trines Uranus in Taurus. Mercury in Capricorn conjuncts Mars in Capricorn. And then we got hit with the new moon in Capricorn right around January 18th. and Mercury in Capricorn sextiles Saturn in Pisces. So it was definitely a lot of energy. And then also we had around this time that the nationwide protests erupted across multiple U.S. cities following the fatal unaliving of Renee Good. And then we also had that a lot of immigration enforcement was definitely the front page of most of the political newspapers, just in news all in general. We also had the US-Europe tensions, Greenland crisis. Throughout the mid-January, tension definitely rose between the US and European allies over Trump's statement about Greenland sovereignty and tariffs, promoting that basically they might take over Greenland. So it was definitely a lot going on. And then right around as all these protests and things are occurring on January, I believe on January 22nd, they had 2 children contained in Minneapolis. One was a very young man named Liam Ramos. He was a preschooler, so he wasn't a young man. He was a young baby. And, it's just very sad that young children are being contained. Definitely, there was 2 narratives to the story, as there's always 2 narratives. But it is being revealed today that a judge is saying that he has to be released from the detention center because his health is deteriorating. So that is very unfortunate. Then also there was a 2-year-old girl and father was taken by the ICE federal agents in Minneapolis, and that was on January 23rd. And I have not heard any update on what is going on with her, if she's still in a detention center or if she is being released. But today, a lot of people showed up. A lot of people are showing up continuously, and they are protesting a lot of the federal agents. Then, unfortunately, on January 24th, we had the news of a federal agent opened fire on a man in East Street neighborhood of South Minneapolis on Saturday morning, and it happened on like on a regular street of Minneapolis. Some people are saying it was a protest. Some people are saying no, it just happened because ICE agents are literally all over Minneapolis. Then they find out that this man, Alex Jeffrey Preddy, was identified as a nurse, an ICU nurse. So there's a lot of protesting continuing to go on during this time. A lot of people have very mixed views about this. I mean, I watched the video. To me, it looks like an intentional execution. It doesn't look like he was attempting to draw his weapon. He was carrying a weapon. He did have a permit to carry his weapon, and that is his, I believe, Second Amendment right to carry a weapon. So a lot of discourse going on. I feel like the country's very divided right now. And the country always gets very divided when Trump's in office, if you don't notice. Also, during this time, we had Mars in Capricorn sextiles Saturn in Pisces, Mercury in Capricorn sextiles Neptune in Pisces, Mercury enters Aquarius, Sun in Aquarius conjuncts Mercury in Aquarius. We had the start of Aquarius season. We also had Mars in Capricorn sextiles Neptune in Pisces. Mars enters Aquarius. The Sun in Aquarius conjuncts Pluto in Aquarius, literally right around the day of this unfortunate unaliving. Pallas enters Pisces. Neptune enters Aries, and Minneapolis is basically exploding and protesting. The country is exploding in protest in political, I guess you could say, conversations. NBA star Steph Curry spoke out about what he felt was going on in Minneapolis, that he is in full support of the protesters, also of people showing up and protecting their neighbors, because a lot of people feel that certain individuals who are being deported aren't necessarily the ones who should be deported, or they aren't necessarily doing it correctly, that they're breaking a lot of laws, they're breaking a lot of things that were placed in place for humanitarian acts. And it's just a lot of discourse. It's a lot of conversations. And a lot of people are blaming Kristi Noem, who is, I believe, the Secretary of the U.S. She is also the one who is in the mix of all this immigration reform. Her and Mr. Bovino, who is the immigration, I guess you could say, leader. He's the little leader of them, and he is just making his mock of something that is supposed to have democracy, something that's supposed to have areas of legislation, areas of correct tributes, are just getting completely fucked up. And, it's all under the Trump administration. So it's quite upsetting for most people, for most Americans. And a lot of people believe that they are to blame. Also, I would say during this time, we had Neptune enters Aries around January 26th. And then we also had the TikTok US app, now under the majority of American ownership, said that it had a recent wave of glitches, but then also they have some kind of terms and I guess you could say new terms that people have to agree to. Users have reported issues with their accounts since video sharing app began operating under a newly formed US-led joint venture instead of having the Chinese ownership. Now, I said if TikTok ever changed, it would change after the new ownership and it would never be the same. People are also saying that now TikTok service terms says that you have to give them all your information. They're basically like tracking you. They need to know your gender, your race, and they are also location tracking you. So there's many complaints about TikTok. Some people are just deleting their TikTok and some people are keeping it. I guess it depends on how you feel with the service terms and what you feel is reasonable and versus what isn't reasonable. And then this was all around Neptune enters Aries, Mars in Aquarius conjuncts Pluto in Aquarius, Mercury in Aquarius conjuncts Venus in Aquarius. And also we are approaching the full moon in Leo, which is going to occur on February 2nd. And we see that how this energy is shifting. People used to love TikTok. People used to love the area of illusions. I see how with Neptune entering Aries, this is really kind of breaking the illusions. And it's also letting people kind of decide for themselves their individual practices and their area of individualism, I guess you could say. Mars in Aquarius conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius, definitely. A major protest occurred, I believe, yesterday on January 30th, where it was nationwide. People, didn't go to work. People all went to the streets, called out. Multiple cities, San Francisco, Minneapolis, New York, everywhere. So definitely people are trying to shift the collective, shift the mindset, and create some type of revolution. I do feel like we are on the midst of a quote unquote type definitely civil war, with amongst each other. It's going to be interesting to see how Aquarius season plays out, if that area of the humanitarian really picks up, or if it's still just a fucking shit show. Also, the Democrats and the White House reached a short-term temporary deal to avert immediate shutdown of the government may occur again, based off of this time the immigration reform language, tightening up what is happening. And Kristi Noem is apparently in some type of, trial, or some type of, I wouldn't say trial, but, they're bringing her to Congress where she's got to explain all her fuck ups and everything that's going wrong with the immigration enforcement politics. So the anti-ice protest and actions did happen and has been happening all month of January. Definitely very large scale. And it's, some people are calling for a nationwide shutdown of the government. Again, there's a lot of debate about ICE reform and how the enforcement of authority and federal agents should be working. Also, something was talked about, which is interesting because I believe I always want to say Frankie and Luigi Mangione is a Leo rising. And somebody tried to break him out of jail the other day, which I thought was interesting. Some guy went into the jail talking about he was an FBI agent, and when they asked him for his identification, he flashed his badge of his driver's license. He said, check out this driver's license. Apparently this fool showed up with a pizza cutter and some type of, I don't know, like little shank. He was trying to break out Mr. Luigi Mangione out of jail. Apparently Luigi Mangione is not going up for the death penalty, which I think is, appropriate. I don't know. We're going to see how that case plays out. I definitely have, a little bit of mixed feelings about Luigi Mangione. I mean, I do respect the fight, but I don't really respect how it occurred. You can't just unalive somebody, even if they are a CEO of a major corporation that does basically kill other people because they don't approve any of their insurance claims. So, I mean, can you? Is that considered? Is that considered just judgment? Is that considered just justice? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. So let's get into the astrology for February, because fucking January was intense. And I feel like, fuck. What the fuck? Are we going to just live through 2025 in another energy? In another intense energy? Or is 2026 going to be a little bit better? Nah, it's going to be a fucking shit show just like 2025. All right, let's get into the February's astrology. Okay, for the nosy people who want to know when I am recording this podcast on January 1st, getting ready to completely end the month of January. I can't take any more information about January. Let's get into February now. And we're going to talk about the full moon in Leo that is occurring. I have a podcast out there if you want to listen to it. I will say that this full moon in Leo definitely is emphasizing the area of the collective, also the area of movement that the collective brings, also the energy of having courage, having those powerful traits, having that energy of personality, having that energy of opinion. So make sure you check out that podcast. Episode will probably be released right around February 1st, probably right around February 1st, February 2nd. So if you still want to hear about the full moon in Leo, definitely take a listen. We also have on February 3rd, Uranus goes direct in Taurus. And this energy is all about, I would definitely see some energy of movement, also some area of the mind, areas of technology, areas of aviation. I would also see some energies of a rebellious nature around movement around wealth. And I would definitely say that we would see that movement really getting like buried deep with our root chakra energy, also our energy to move forward, even when we feel a little bit stubborn. And it could definitely bring some little bit more of good fortune of seeing things differently. We also have on February 5th, Mercury in Aquarius squares Uranus in Taurus. Maybe we'll get some information from UFOs, okay? Maybe the aliens are gonna fucking come down and fucking save us. That would be nice. So we have a Mercury in Aquarius squares Uranus and Taurus. I definitely would say that this could throw us off. This could make me feel a little bit challenging. Could also feel like our words and our areas of limiting self-beliefs might feel a little bit of an upshake. It also might feel like there's areas of problems. I mean, a UFO abduction can't be that bad, can it? I mean, look at what's fucking happening on Earth. Also, around February 6th, we have Mercury breaking up that beautiful Aquarius stellium that we have right now. We have Mercury in Aquarius, Venus in Aquarius, Mars in Aquarius, the Sun in Aquarius. So Mercury is going to be the first one to take a dip on out of that Aquarian constellation. It's going to travel on over to Pisces. And this makes everything, I hope, a little bit more romantic. I hope it makes it a little bit more sweeter, emotional. Maybe it makes everything feel a little bit more flirty, encouraging us to get centered with our sensitive side. Maybe our area of psyche will definitely get a little bit more developed. Our intuition will definitely kick in. Our third eye will definitely get activated, with it occurring when Pisces, and also Mercury is known as the messenger. So some of us can be working on our intuition magic. We can also be working on our area of fruition, where we see the collective moving, where we also see our areas of imagination and emotional intelligence and sensitivity coming forward in the waves that Piscean energy brings. Then around February 8th, we have Venus in Aquarius squares Uranus and Taurus. So in case you made up with your lover on after that shift of Mercury and Aquarius squares Uranus and Taurus, maybe you guys were fighting about the bills. He doesn't pay his share of bills, and you're like, look, fucker, you need to start paying your way, okay? Get the fuck off my couch. Maybe you guys, made up. Well, guess what? You're fighting again. Because Venus in Aquarius squares Uranus and Taurus feels like somebody is breaking up. Somebody is getting sick of your shit. And you might just want to take a look at yourself, and you also want to maybe take a look at your own areas of disconnection that you have in the relationship, and allow that energy to come forward and to have a deep realization that without people compromising and without communication and having a rooted structure around certain topics like joint spending, financial institutions, also work ethic, also the areas of feeling rebellious, also feeling like the free thinker. If you don't have these conversations, you're going to definitely feel the backlash in the relationship. Also around this time, we have Venus enters Pisces. So that Aquarius stellium is slowly but definitely shifting away. So it's going to be interesting to see if the protests are going to kind of like die down. Maybe things are going to get a little bit calmer. Maybe we're not going to be as rebellious. I don't know. The collective might still want to fuck some shit up. Also, we have, this is kind of feeling like a love spell. This is definitely feeling like a love spell. Venus in Pisces always feels like a love spell. It feels like a watery, seductive love spell, maybe in the shower. Relationships are definitely feeling the compassion and the passion. And we also need to take time to stop comparing ourselves and stop comparing our relationships. What's interesting is that we can separate reality and also our dream state from our relationships. Many of us think like our relationships are going to be like this beautiful thing. It's going to be so whimsical and magical. And for the most part, that's what I like. I like whimsical and magical. I like the romantic vibe. I like, the area of compliments. I like the area of being spoiled. But yeah, there's days that, I'm not spoiled. There's days I gotta get up and go to work. There's days I'm doing the fucking dishes. Shit like that. So we definitely have to see that there's a reality, and then there's also our area of dreams and our area of intentions. And I think with Venus in enters Pisces also gives us an allowance to acknowledge some of our own red flags. And so many of us are like, I don't have red flags. I'm a green flag, right? But sometimes we do, baby girl. We do have our own red flags. I mean, I'm not saying that we have as many red flags as half of these other fucking fuck ups, but we do have some, okay? Like, for instance, maybe instead of just throwing down all your stuff in the living room and creating a big pile of fuck, I'm so glad to be home, I hate everybody, maybe you do carry it up to your room. I mean, it might relieve some of your partner's stress. You know, it might. Maybe instead of ignoring that credit card bill from Victoria's Secret, oopsie, that you actually pay the bill. So you don't get charged with late charges and you don't accidentally pay a $200 bill versus a $50 bill. Oopsie. So definitely look at our own red flags. Look at our own areas of dishevelment and delusion and acknowledge that, especially as we have on February 13th, Saturn enters Aries. Now, despite the energy of Saturn being in Aries again, because it was in Aries before it went retrograde. Remember that? Do you guys not remember? I did a podcast on it, so you guys can go back and listen to everything that I talked about when Saturn goes into Aries. But also, it's definitely where it's going to kind of be for the next couple of years. So we need to get used to this. The area of planetary discipline, of requirement, of restrictions, of control, I would even say of judgment and self could be a little bit highlighted. So it's definitely a fiery flame of movement that would make me think that we want to be bold, but we also want to be responsible at some point with ourselves, right? It's so easy to be responsible about the restrictions that we put on everybody else. But sometimes we need to be a little bit responsible about ourselves. And the sun in Aquarius squares Uranus around February 15th. So we could be feeling a little bit unbalanced, you know. Oopsie doopsie. Then on February 17th, I feel like it's going to get a little fucking weird. We have a new moon in Aquarius with a solar eclipse. We are entering eclipse season. Aren't you guys glad you do shadow work all the time? So you could kind of chill, kind of take this time to relax during the eclipses. You reflect some more, maybe get a good book, I would be making huge intentions with this new moon in Aquarius. Some people, you know, like to do a little bit of judgment magic, justice magic, as some would say. With the new moon in Aquarius, I would definitely ask, what would this new era of me look like? Where would my shadow be kind of a little bit more pronounced, right? Where would my shadow kind of be a little bit more centered around allowing my authentic nature to come out? Because your shadow can sometimes creep up and be like, don't do this, don't do that, don't say this, don't do that, you know, because you're scared, right? What the collective might think. I kind of think that's what this solar eclipse is going to highlight too. Also around this time, we have Chinese New Year, and we are entering the year of the fire horse as we laid low for the wooden snake in areas of transformation and also areas of movement, of shedding our own beliefs, shedding our own areas of focus. The horse is telling us to get up and go get that shit. The horse is a very powerful animal. Just saying to those who are born under the year of the horse, I see you, bitch. I see you working hard. I see you taking that determination, discipline, consistency, and showing up for yourself, showing up for everybody else, but you are showing up. It's an area that feels a little bit more centered around making change. It also feels like an energy of making big change around creation, around legacy, around movement, allowing the shakeups and the misfortunes to be left in the old placements, in the old skin, right? It almost kind of reminds me of like when a girl has a breakup, and if it's a bad breakup, she's like doing something crazy with her hair. She's fucking dyeing it, cutting it, getting layers. I don't know. She's fucking doing something crazy. And sometimes you let go of that area. The hair really represents almost like that energy of the shedding. Maybe it is a good time to get a little bit of a haircut. Let that shedding go. Let new feathers start to ruffle. Let new movement start to create. New skin start to develop. I would say 2025 and definitely the year of 2026 in the beginning has taught me I need to have tough skin. For the most part, I do have tough skin, but sometimes I do kind of reflect on certain things, which in all honesty, you have to remember that own people's insecurities shouldn't reflect on me, especially when you're trying to make change and you're trying to improve certain situations and people have their own limiting self-beliefs, maybe lack of confidence, lack of responsibility, lack of drive. Some of us are just a little bit more fucking driven than others. And unfortunately, that's hard because you can't change other people's perspective. You can't change other people's disciplinary actions, the drive. Not everybody is built like you. Not everybody is built like me. And we can't expect that they are. But there is that moment in time where you have to acknowledge that just because they're not like this doesn't mean I have to lower my light or confine myself to be like them. No, bitch, I'm gonna keep on pushing. Watch this. Somebody hold my purse. Also, around this time, bye Aquarius season, we have the sun enters Pisces and we get hit with the end of winter, the area of our emotions. Not quite in spring, but we know that spring is around the corner and we feel that energy of movement where our dreams feel a little bit more centered, lively, and definitely vivid, I would say. I would be very surprised that the dreams don't get very personable right around this time. We have Saturn in Aries. We also have the energy of Neptune in Aries. It definitely feels like that Neptune energy is going to come very individualized. The dreams might get personable. We also have the energy of Saturn in Aries conjuncts Neptune in Aries, and Venus in Pisces trines Jupiter in Cancer. And Mercury in retrograde is coming full throttle to wake up some of our elements of relationships as it is occurring in Pisces for the year of 2026. First Mercury retrograde in Pisces on February 25th. So put that shit in the books. We also have Mars in Aquarius squares Uranus in Taurus, and Mercury in Pisces conjuncts Venus in Pisces during the retrograde. So if you guys break up, don't worry, you'll get back together. Just give it 3 weeks. So that is the astrology for February. Wow. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention, because it literally just happened, I believe yesterday, was Dawn Lemon, and I believe her name is Georgia something. She's a reporter too. They were both arrested. There's definitely a war on journalism, independent journalism. There's also a war on independent opinions, I would say. And if you are a creator, if you are an independent journalist, it was Georgia Fort. She was arrested as well by ICE agents. So there is definitely some controversy. But, they went to a protest that happened to be at a church, which many people, said that is against the law. that you aren't allowed to go into a house of worship, which I do agree. I don't feel like that should occur, but I do feel like independent journalism and also the area of reporting the news, because media will fucking twist this shit around, should have definitely been, highlighted, right? Because everything gets twisted around. So I think that was kind of unfortunate for the most part. And I forgot to mention that, but I wanted to talk about it. So that is the astrology for February. And I feel like February is going to be, hopefully, the Pisces energy might calm down the collective a little bit. But who knows? Who knows? It might not. People might still be fired up as we have still so much going on. So I want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And share it with your witchy bestie. Let me know, how do you feel about everything that occurred in January? How do you feel about the astrology for February? Do you feel like it's a little bit less intense? Do you feel like the Pisces energy is going to calm it down, or no? Because we're entering eclipse season, so nothing's going to get calm. And then we're going to have our first retrograde for 2026. So let me know how you feel about that. All right. Thanks for listening. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Bye.